Well, hello there, lovelies. Stephanie and Maggie here. This is a special recording we're doing just for our wholesale customers. We just wrapped up the lovely season that is taxes season, something along those lines. And it's not necessarily something to celebrate, but it's something that will happen every single year if you are a business owner or not. Just we pay taxes. So we thought it would be fun to just kind of break down some of our thoughts on taxes, what to do, what not to do, have a little discussion about that. And hopefully, if you're new to starting your own business, this will be a little bit of a helpful navigation of taxes. But also, if you've been in the trenches for a while, maybe you'll pick up a little tidbit as well. So Maggie's got the whole list. I'm gonna let her start, and we're gonna chat with each other and kind of ping back and forth. So have at it, Maggie
So
May.
I'll start with saying we're not tax experts. We're trying to approach this in a way of like Stephanie and I, before we've owned Oh You're Lovely, owned our own small businesses and filed taxes. And now we've been in business for 5 years, about 5 years with Oh You're Lovely. So this is more coming from of like things we've kind of learned along the way and noticed with taxes and like things we picked up on, but we're not experts. We just want to bring more awareness to taxes. We both feel like really, really small businesses, like some of you might be, um, kind of glaze over taxes, especially if it's your first small business. Um, and that's not okay to just glaze over taxes. But so I guess let's just start talking about it. I just wanted to make sure you guys know, like, we're not trying to say we're experts. We're just like talking about like stuff we've been through and why we look at things certain ways.
Yeah.
Okay. Taxes, guys. The first thing I'm going to say is even if you're a brand new business and you're really small, like take taxes seriously. Um, there's laws in place and they're there for a reason. And even if you're just like doing a couple farmers markets a year and you're making $10,000, let's just say that feels really small because nobody can live off of $10,000. That could be just your vacation money or your extra money. But anytime you're making money off of selling things, like all of you are, if you own your own small floral business, like you have to pay taxes. So my first line of advice for you is when you're getting started with a business where you're going to be selling a service or a good, get an accountant. I don't care how small you are. Find a local accountant, meet with them, tell them what they're doing, and listen to advice they have to say. It's that easy.
Mhm.
And it won't cost you that much to do that. You're probably a couple $100 at the most to like sit down and talk with an accountant. Accountants are
Mhm.
trained, this is what they do, so they're going to be able to tell you like, okay, like you think you're going to make this much this year, like here's what I suggest you set aside. I will say, even though Stephanie and I owned our own little small businesses before Oh You're Lovely, our first tax year was kind of a mess. We
Oh
do
my
have an accountant. We've had the same accountant this whole time, and I do like him. But even with I had a relationship with him before this, he still didn't prepare us properly. And when tax time came for that first year and we got the bill, I was like,
God.
what the fudge nuggets is going on here? Because it was our first year of like having a business that
Mhm.
made, I mean, we were in the six figures the first year, which isn't really a surprise to anybody, I'm sure. But like, in our own small businesses, we made, maybe Stephanie, maybe you made 50,000 one year, and it wasn't significant. But when you're getting in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're paying taxes on it, we didn't
Mhm.
know what was coming. So that first tax bill we got was very shocking. So
Yeah.
be prepared as possible from the onset. You
Yeah,
have
I would
anything to add
plan
on that?
like yeah, there's a couple things I wanted to say. I also will say, and this is slightly off of a tangent of taxes, but also keep all of your funds separated. So get a bank account that is specifically for business related
Yeah.
expenses and income and things like that. So keep that, you got to keep it separated. Is Then I'll sing the song.
Yes.
But you got to keep it separated. And
That
then,
song's in my head now. The gotta
isn't
keep
it?
it
You're welcome.
separated. The offspring song.
Separated. But you do. You got to keep
You
them
do, you
separated.
do.
Even if you are like not expecting it to be this huge thing, like planning ahead of time, as like tedious as it is going to be so much more beneficial to you at the end of the year at the time of doing taxes. And you're going to thank yourself instead of scrambling at the end of the year. The amount of stress that's built as you're trying to go through receipts and all of this other stuff, if you get a system in place right away and you stick to it, which is hard to do, especially if you're starting out, but start a system, adjust it each year as needed, but start that system. Even like as simple as like an Excel sheet that shows all of
Yeah.
your incoming and outcoming things, and just start it from there. You don't have to start with QuickBooks or whatever if you don't want to.
Right.
Like start small, but just keep everything. And I will say too, like you want to prepare for the worst case scenario and hope for the best when it comes to the amount that you're going to be owed for taxes. Like I've been talking to other friends who run their own businesses. Like my hair person is an independent, has her own independent hair studio, things like that. Her first year of taxes, like it's terrifying because you go in kind of knowing that you're going to have to owe something, but you have no idea
Right.
really how much it's going to be. So a lot of like, and again, we are not tax experts and this is not tax advice, but I have a lot of friends who will take like 30% of the income that they have each month and are putting it aside. And that also takes dedication and being, what's the word I'm looking for? Because I'm not,
Disciplined. I mean,
yeah, you have to be disciplined. Thank you. You need to be disciplined in that. Don't touch that money. And then if you don't have to spend it all on taxes, bonus for you. Now, or you set it aside and put it towards everything else. I will say the first year is the scariest because you're not paying any of the estimates or anything like that. Once you get through that first year, the thought is that hopefully your business is growing. And so then the estimates are typically a lot more
right.
than even the year prior, with the thought that you're going to grow, therefore you owe more taxes. It is
And
what it
one
is.
thing before you go on, one thing I'm going to interject
Mhm.
here. The more you make, the more taxes are, but something like your profitability also
Mhm.
affects your taxes. So like even
Yeah.
if one year, let's say you made $100,000, your taxes were, let's just say $30,000. Next year, if you make $100,000, but for some reason you're not as profitable,
Mhm.
like, I don't know. I could give you some examples. Like, let's just say like you bought a big piece of equipment and you lost some merchandise that was on a ship that got rained out. Like all the things could affect your profitability. Your profitability
Mhm.
will also affect how much you pay in taxes.
Yeah.
All right, proceed. Sorry.
Which is where having an accountant is
Yeah.
super helpful, and also helping you figure out. And I don't think we take it to full advantage as we could possibly of like finding the other write-offs and things like that we can do. We trust our accountant to do what needs to be done, but there's, I'm sure, room that we could grow as far as being able to take, so that we can have some other write-offs that we aren't taking advantage of. But we again don't know all of the tax laws, so that's
Right.
where your CPA and accountant sometimes will come in handy to be like, if you have this extra, this would be the time to maybe do this with your business so that you can use that towards that to help actually bring down your profitability in some way so you owe less taxes even though you're making the same income that you were. So it's a lot of math and a lot of
Yeah.
strategy. So you definitely want someone on your team that can help kind of coach you through that.
But I think what else we should talk about is like, don't take shortcuts and don't be
Mhm.
dishonest. And I know, especially for brand new businesses, when you're finally making money and like it feels really good and you have this influx in your checking account, your bank account, you don't want to turn around and give that money away. Um, I mean, you just don't, especially when
Right.
you're first starting out and there's a lot of expenses and stuff. But the government will get you. That's the thing. Like, you're not invincible. And my very, very first business I had, it was super tiny. And I fudged up my first year of taxes and I got an $8,000 fine or something like that. And when you're a little business, like you like that's it's horrible. It feels horrible. So it's and I have friends who have huge businesses who've never paid their taxes, and as scary as it is, they're probably going to end up in prison. Like you can't dick around with your taxes. Like it's not worth it. You're not invincible. It's really not cute to do it because if if your partner's working a normal job or your parents had worked a normal job, they're paying into the tax system. And this is where like I'm
Mhm.
not going to get on the soapbox, but I'm sure as just a human, you're using resources that taxes pay for. You're driving on the roads. Maybe your kids go to public school. It's kind of our duty, and that's how our government is set up. Like those laws are there for a reason. So just don't skirt around it because it's just
Right.
not worth it. It's just really not. And there are consequences, and nobody is invincible from it. It might take a few years for the government to be like, oh, what's going on with this person? Like, why is this happening? But like, the government will knock on your door. It's just not worth it, from my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'll say too, you're never too small to like, don't make your business feel tinier than it actually is too, as far
Mm-hmm.
as when it comes to paying taxes. The threshold is very, very low, I believe. And if you're completely, anytime you're making money, it should be documented for taxes,
Yeah.
as tiny as it is. Because I mean, at the same time, it's like, so say you only made $1,000, like you were just selling some arrangements, pickups from your house or whatever, just, little stuff. You, what is the harm in filing those taxes either? Like the likelihood that they're going to be like, we want all that $1,000 back is not going to happen. Like it's going to be a $20 tax bill or something, things like that. But at the same time, too, for legitimizing your business, like registering your business, all of that stuff, that's going to be super important as well, not just for taxes and the purpose for that, but also so that you can get a wholesale account and do all of that, which I would hope whoever's watching this is a wholesale customer of ours. So they've already done that because we don't approve accounts without that information.
Mm-hmm.
But just in general, if this happens to come across somebody else, registering your business is really important as well when it comes to that too. So,
Oh, I just had something on the top of my head and I lost it. It
oh,
was a really good point too. Oh,
it comes
another
back.
thing to think
Oh,
about, and this is something I personally ran into when I was in my very early 20s and owned my first small business, is um if you are going to dick around and not be honest about your income with your little small business, and let's say like you got it up to where you're making like 30,000 $40,000 a year and you're really contributing your household, but you're not reporting it to the government, it's all under the table. Let's just say it's all under the table. But let's say like you and your partner want to go buy a house, and to get approved for the amount of loan you need, and oh, I make $40,000 a year, my partner makes $100,000 a year, together we make 140, and we need to be show that much income to get the kind of loan we need. Well, let me tell you something. You don't have your business registered, or you've been doing stuff under the table. There's nothing you can show that bank to show them you
right.
make $40,000 a year. So you're screwing yourself. And credit, and I don't want to sound like some old lady or something, but like
We're getting up there though.
credit and your credit score is so freaking important for your personal purchases, but for in business too. Like,
Mhm.
if you grow in business and you need a little help from a bank, like if you have no credit history, you ain't getting anything. And that's for
Yeah.
personal
And
life
they'll look
too.
at your personal.
No bank is going to be like, oh, you make $40,000 a year, but you can't show me. Sure, no, that's never going to happen. So,
Yeah.
in a way, being honest, having your business registered, filing your taxes, you're creating a credit paper trail for yourself of your income. And if you skirt around that because you don't want to pay your part in taxes, you're missing out on that. And it is a big deal. Anything can
Yeah.
come up in life, and you might need $10,000 because who knows? but you're creating
Right.
that for yourself. And it's just, I don't know, it's a huge thing. I don't think people even think about until you have to think about it. And I got in this
Exactly.
situation where I went to the bank for money and they're like, oh, what do you mean you make, like, show us? And I was like, oh, I can't really because I don't know what I'm doing, you know? And I didn't. Like, I was so young. And I'm
Yeah.
40 now. It takes a while to learn these things, and it's stuff like we don't get taught in school. So that's why I like having these conversations, is because I didn't know this stuff. Stephanie, did you know everything when you got started? Like, you just don't know.
No.
There's no way to know.
No. I would say even like how to register your business and things like that. You just gotta wade through it and figure it out and all that fun stuff. But yeah, you don't know what you don't know. That's been kind of our motto
Yeah,
this year.
that's my
So
motto lately. You don't know what you don't know.
so
And it can get you in trouble.
it can, which again is why and I think sometimes we get it in our head that the expense of an accountant is going to be too high, but you have to remember too, it's a business expense too on top of it. So that goes towards part of your taxes and taking away from your profit and stuff. You're having to pay somebody to, help with that. So it kind of evens itself and is a wash in some ways if you think about it in that way. So, yeah,
I think I
I
think the
guess
last
the stress point we'll have this entire conversation is get an accountant and be
yeah.
honest is really
Yeah.
our our big takeaways.
The last little thing, and this is like a small little takeaway. Once you get going in business, one thing you have to realize is, like, even if you feel like your business is consistent and not much is changing, your taxes still can be wild from year to year. And we touched on that a little more in the conversation earlier about even your profitability. Like, you do
Hmm.
something, it looks like you made the same amount of money. It doesn't mean you're going to pay the same amount of taxes, because your
Hmm.
profitability can affect that. You could have got some stimulus money from the government. Your child tax credits could have changed. Like, there is, like, so many different things. So
Hmm.
again, plan when you're in business for a couple of years, do your quarterly taxes off that estimation, but also realize that's not set in stone. You could get money back. That's happened to us. You could owe a ton more money than you were paying in, and
Hmm.
and not just because you made more money. There's just other things that affect your taxes, and I think that's also something people don't realize. Like, and we didn't either. It's like, oh, okay, we're probably going to make about this much money. It's going to work like this, and it never just works like that ever.
Hmm.
It's just never that
No,
straightforward. Um,
no,
so
it's
just
not,
keep
which
that in
is
mind. Of, like,
frustrating.
it's frustrating. So plan. You need to plan, but also realize, just because you're planning, it doesn't mean it's going to, like, that's what your taxes are going to look like.
Right. Yeah, it's always that hope for the best but prepare for the worst as far as when it comes to
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Um and again, it changes year to year and it's going to depend on so many different factors that you're not going to know exactly, and something could change like the fact of being in, surviving a pandemic and the changes that happened with that, and then there were changes like to the tax codes at that point to try to help people, but then they reverted back the next, like, once things were done, like, it's enough to make your brain hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't really prepare for all of that, and again, like, you can't prepare for huge unexpected things to happen. um so you have to go into it knowing that, we're going to do the best we can. We're going to at least, save our whatever percentage that our account is an agreement with is the best thing to do, and then you're going to hope for the best that, you're profitable, but to the point where, everybody's comfortable and happy, which
Yeah,
nobody's happy paying taxes, but it
right.
again,
Yeah, but like I
it's the
said,
country we live
we're
in.
using the tax resources. Like, it's not, and I get it. It's not fun to pay the government a bunch of money, but, like, the reality is you're living in this country and you're using some of what your
Right.
taxes go towards. So you can't do both. You can't be like, I'm going to use these resources that come from the government, but I'm not going to pay the government anything. It's just not. I mean, there's Stephanie and I have morals. Like, we just don't, and you can decide your own thing. But for us, like, there is a moral ground there where like we just do what we're supposed
Yeah,
to do. And we're like that with everything in business. And if you've been around for a while, like, our customer service even speaks for that. Like, if we mess up, we are absolutely going to fix it. Like, there's no question about it. Like, so we
yeah,
just do the right thing in like every part of the business. So, just how we are.
exactly. Exactly. So, is there any last like wrap ups that you would like to say, Maggie, about taxes?
My one stickler with this group of people we're talking to, which are like small business owners, just don't skirt the system. That's all. That's like my biggest takeaway is I hear too many stories in this community where people think it's okay and
Mhm.
they're not going to get caught. I mean, that's fine. You can make your own choices, but like just do the right thing and
Yeah.
don't skirt the system. That's all. That's my
Yeah, I
biggest
agree.
takeaway, really.
I know. I agree with that. Like 100%. Because I worry about people that they are going to get in trouble, and it's going to be such more of a costly mistake than if you would have
Yeah.
just paid your taxes to begin with. You would have been
Yeah.
out a couple $100 or $1,000 or something, and now you have an $8,000 fine that you have to
See,
pay
and
and
it
figure
happened
out
to me.
like how are you going to figure
Like
that out?
yeah. Yeah.
So, and I think too, yeah, we're one in how many, I don't even know what the population is in the United States, but don't don't think that it couldn't happen to you or that you're too small. Like I've had friends before for their personal taxes make very very low amount of money and are getting having to have the what is it called where they
Audit?
check everything over for you,
Audit.
an audit, yeah, where then you have to show it. Like I'm more terrified of an audit. Like I don't want to, like I want to do everything on the up and up so then I don't have to worry about an audit and the stress that comes with that because it can be very stressful.
I was at and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but a job I did work, I was part of, and when I worked there as an employee, we did go
Mhm.
through an audit, and it is extreme, especially if you're not microscopic. Like if you have some money coming in and out of your business, I'm telling you from firsthand experience, audits are extreme and there's no way out. Once you get that letter that you're under audit, you can't just not participate.
Right.
They got your number,
Yeah.
they're at your door, like in
And they
metaphorically.
will. Oh, and physically, because I had a similar experience, except for the audit happened before I worked for the company, but they talked about it for years after the fact and why the systems were in place the way they were after that, because they didn't want to ever have to go through that experience again. And it was so stressful. It was very long, and like
Yes.
auditors were at the location going through paperwork and things like that. So yeah,
It makes me
it's
feel sick. Like I feel
terrifying.
sick to my stomach, like
Mhm,
talking about audits, just because
mhm.
it's so much not a joke and it's so serious. And I'm glad you brought
Yeah,
that point up, Stephanie, about audits, because you don't want to open yourself up to an audit. And the more
no,
sketchy ass shit you do, like, so
it
Stephanie and I have
creates these
both been
red
through it
flags.
at other companies, like have experience, like it literally, it happens and you're not above it happening.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I would say the company that I worked for was similar in size of ours, maybe slightly bigger, but I just know that it was they might have been bigger at the time that it happened, but it was so yeah, it was one of those things that it changed the dynamic of how the business was run ever since after that. So again, similar to the beginning of this conversation of getting things already prepped and have systems in place, it's the same for everything. Just have your systems in place so that if the worst case happens, you have everything already like lined up and good to go and just can hand it on over. So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So
Don't be
dot
scared
your
of it
I's,
though at the same time.
dot
I
your
mean,
I's,
taxes
cross
are
your
not
T's.
fun, but don't be scared of them,
No,
I guess
yeah.
is the other thing too.
Just do the right thing. Take it from
Yeah.
us. Like, just do the right thing. That's
There
all we
you
really
go.
care about. We don't want you guys getting in trouble. We want you to be
Exactly.
prepared, be boss mama professionals. Yeah.
All that stuff.
So
I mean,
we
treat it
just
like
care.
it is a legitimate business, so treat it as such,
Yes,
is what it is.
exactly.
Even
Yep.
if you think it's too small, it's not too small. I promise you it's
Yep.
not. And the more you have the mindset that, oh, it's just an itty bitty baby business or it's nothing big or whatever, and you want it to be big or you want it to be something more than just a side hustle, it won't get there if you don't treat it as such. Like, if you want a legitimate, this is my form of income, you need to treat it as such. Otherwise, it won't come into fruition is kind of my mindset on that. So,
I
all
think
right.
that's it. I think that's good. I think that was pretty intense. Hope we didn't
It
scare
was.
anybody. We love you guys.
All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the little bitty podcast that it was just for our wholesale customers on the not fun topic, but it's part of life
Necessary.
topic. It's necessary. It's taxes. So I hope you guys have a lovely day, whatever you're doing. We'll pop in here and there with other little mini podcasts if you guys enjoy these. And until next time, I'm Stephanie from Oh You're Lovely. There's Maggie, also known as Maggie Bay. And we will talk to you soon, okay? Bye, guys.